It has it has gone the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me have a quick look at the agenda here. Okay, so we're going to start with PACT. And Karsten, do we go straight to Vadim's slides, or is there something you want to talk about first?
Yeah, that's a good question, because Vadim's slides are probably about something different than the CBOR PACT document we have at the moment. Well, I was trying to answer the questions that came out of the previous meeting. So I don't know which of the two ones are done first.
I think right. And moving ahead with what we were talking about already is the priority. So let's start with that.
Okay. Okay, so I hope you can all hear me well. So I submitted CBOR PACT-15, which is essentially just reflecting the pull request that was out before with those three tunables, A, B, C. And just to remind you what the tunables are, the A tunable is the number of 1 plus 0 simple values that are being used for shared item references. B is the number of 1 plus 1 tags for straight argument references, and C is the number of 1 plus 1 tags for inverted argument references. And CBOR PACT, as it went through the working group last call, had B much larger than C, but looking at more data, we recently didn't see as much of a good reason to do a B that is much larger than C. So probably we'll come up with something where B equals C, so that there are essentially two numbers that we are looking for, the number for A and the number that is right for B and C as well. There was this argument, there is nothing wrong with doing this with A equals 0, B equals 0, and C equals 0. And yeah, but that's not how CBOR was designed. This is how something that's called Beeson binary JSON was defined. We can just throw lots of bytes at things, and we're happy doing that. But that was not what people wanted out of CBOR. They wanted to have something that is reasonably concise without creating a lot of complexity, just for the to get a little bit more conciseness. So yeah, there is nothing wrong with a house with just one window, but it's not what you would normally design. Actually, I was trying to get a emoji for a house with one window, and then I noticed, oops, this house actually has 3 windows, because you can see the window frames left and right. So I looked some more, and this was the house with one window that I finally found in the Apple emoji space. Anyway, we said we wanted to have some experiments that give us a better feeling for these numbers. And one experiment I already talked about, where we are assuming a ZIF distribution, and we're looking at B or C. And we have the original draft, which has a B of 32, and that is our baseline here. And going to 8 costs us about half a byte per reference, and going to 0 costs us about 1 byte per reference. So this gives us a feeling for the amount of damage that going to a smaller number does. So yeah, from an efficiency point of view, both the original draft and the economic solution that we have been discussing would probably make sense, and the radical one where we have all zeros doesn't make a lot of sense from my point of view. But we wanted to have a few more examples. It actually turns out it's really hard to find a corpus of things that are being represented in CBOR or JSON. Yeah, I have been using one large SBOM file as an internal benchmark for checking my implementation, whether it does reasonable things. And this is a really large file, and it has a lot of structural redundancy. So it doesn't have that much redundancy in the actual values. It does have some there, but it has really large tables, and these look similar in some ways. And that's something that Pact finds and creates table entries. And what you see here is the frequency of reference for the first 10 argument table elements. So these are all things that are going into some concatenation mechanism or into some mechanism that makes use of function tags. And interestingly, so this completely random, but in this case, it just happens to happen. The first 8 actually are larger, appreciably larger than the following ones. So from the point of view of this particular example, a large file with a certain amount of structural redundancy, this looks great. But we shouldn't be too deceived by that, because what this essentially tells us is what is the complexity of the structural redundancy in this particular input file. And it turns out SBOMs are relatively uniform structures, so you probably don't need that many table elements to pare down on the size of the whole thing. But yeah, so this is just an indicator, and it looked like b equals 8 actually would fit to that particular examples, and I'm not unhappy about that. So one more thing is we were looking, did you try Z standard on this data? Yes, Michael, and it's so incredibly much better than what the CBOR Pact does. So if your application can live with doing a compression and a decompression using a data compression algorithm, do that. So this is for a different kind of application where you want the application protocol to actually make use of the fact that the data it represents have some redundancy inside. So the last check we did, or Martin did, and I see Martin is actually there, was what are our data for A, for the number of shared item references. And of course, depending on the complexity of the data, you want to be able to use a lot of shared item references. And we get that a bit reasonably efficiently because when we leave A and go into the slightly less efficient next step, then we still have a reasonably efficient way. We have a 1+1 way of doing things. But it really makes sense to have a 1+0 way at the start of this table. And here we used a corpus of packets from an IoT test bed. And these are DNS messages. I think these are all DNS responses, but I'm not sure about that. And it turns out that in the IoT space, of course, many DNS packets are small. Test beds, yes, Martin, thank you. Many of the packets are actually small because you only want to know one thing, and the situation that you get multiple responses is maybe a bit rarer than in other places, except that this also includes much DNSSD, which tends to give you more answers for one request. So this is, I'm having a bit of a problem characterizing that, but it's something that I would take as a pretty good reference example for something that happens in the IoT space with relatively simple devices. And yeah, the question is, are there more than 16? Well, actually, we have 24 simple values. We have 4 of them actually being used. We have 24 1 plus 0 simple values. 4 of them are used for false, true, null, and undefined. So we have 20 left. And when we originally designed CBOR, we thought that 16 would be a good number for A. But at the time, we actually had 28 1 plus 0 reference. So when we added indefinite length encoding later, we gave up 4 of those to support indefinite length encoding. So maybe it's okay to say we are not sticking with the original design, but going down to 12. So if you look at the graph, you can see that many of these DNS messages actually are simple enough that they get good compression for the already with 3 or 4 1 plus 0 references. But if you want to be reasonably sure that most of your messages get the full benefit here, then you need to go to a little bit more to the right. And of course, we can now argue whether 95% is the right threshold here. Yeah, so it all depends a lot on how you actually build your corpus, because the message size, of course, is a strong influence on the message complexity. And you need more reference items to deal with more complex data. So this was relatively simple because it was IoT. But yeah, there's a really long tail to the right side here. So this is the experiments that we were able to pull off. I was hoping we would get a bit more input maybe from other people on the mailing list. This did not yet happen, but if you have something and some corpus of messages and could either do this experiment yourself or give it to Martina or I, so we can run our experiments here, we would definitely be interested in that. So that's some data that I think was useful. At least I think these are pretty reasonable. Yeah, I wouldn't say support, but they, if you try to do a decision based on the limited data that we have, then I think that A equals 12 and B equals 8 and C equals 8 is a reasonable way to do this. Discussion.
Go ahead.
How many percentage of them would benefit if we give some more, even more than 16, for example, 20?
Well, we don't have that many. We would completely use up the simple references that can represent it in 1 byte. And even though we haven't used any in the first 12 years of CBOR, I wouldn't be entirely comfortable to do this. But yeah, we could certainly look at that. But you can see the graph is already well above 95% at 16. So there will be some diminishing returns for this particular application. Of course, if you have larger files, then you have a lot more shared items. And then you would benefit from having more numbers that can be represented in a short way. But for a large item, the benefit would then probably also not be that crucial.
I am asking because I was putting about 18 single byte values in CBOR, and I don't think this is a very round number. Maybe decrease it to 16 like in CBOR Pact, but will it work? So how many more than 16 are worth of that?
I'm not sure. Was this a question?
Probably, yes. Probably want to look to this data later in mailing list. About 16, between 16 and 20.
Yeah, I didn't look at this because we just don't have those numbers. So I can't really help with that.
So any discussion on this? Okay, lack of discussion. Karsten, do you know where you're going now?
Well, I have a plan, but maybe we should actually look at Vadim's slides now.
Okay.
And see whether that augments the plan.
All right, let's do that. I am passing slide control to Vadim.
Okay. Well, we all discuss this for so long because the problem is that all these values are supposed to be delegated to just one specification. Maybe to be said is to be usurpated by CBOR Pact. But what if we can assign this range in such a way this which can provide to be them used by different specifications. In this case, using such so many values is less a problem. I came to this idea when I received a message from GitHub about closing issue in CBOR LD. They used to be 256 tags, and then continue with the array, just like current CBOR Pact scheme. So, if many different applications could use the same range, then this range could be large enough. For example, for simple values, we can register all 16, but say that they are defined to be for packing and templating purposes, And application protocol must specify will it use it themselves or use CBOR Pact or maybe use some later another standard, as you can see on the slide. Then it will be no problem. But here's distinction. Simple values are, well, simple. We can issue some small RFC about them and be done. But for tags, we still need some decision because tag definition must include items of which type can it tag. So decoders could understand this properly. So for tag ranges, maybe additional thinking is needed, but for simple values, I think we could go for all 16 if we do this way. Discussion.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure I understand what you're trying to do, but the important point to remember is that CBOR Pact is really two things. It's the referencing mechanism and it's the table setup mechanism. And the referencing mechanism is designed in such a way that it can be stable for a long time. The table setup mechanisms, we can define a new one every week if we want to. The interesting thing is that each such table mechanism essentially gives a meaning to those simple values and the argument reference tags. If you want to do something like what I think you want to do here, you just say, hi, I'm a CBOR Pact table setup mechanism. And then you have those reference items for your own use. So we are essentially done with this already.
No, I mean something completely another. Well, not completely, but for being able to use these values not only by CBOR Pact, but by any other standard.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Such that registration of these values in IANA must say that exact meaning of these values to be defined by a specific application, or if application does not want it, it can resort to, for example, their meaning defined in CBOR Pact, or maybe their meaning in CBOR, which assigns different meaning to the simple values, but also uses them for packing purposes. The point here is that if they are registered just for CBOR Pact, then it will be set in stone forever. And if any later standard may invent better packing scheme, then this will not be available for this. But if we do this in such way that choose your packing standard, then it will be possible. And we can resort to such large range like 16 simple values. Okay.
Yeah, what I'm trying to explain is that CBOR Pact already has exactly that as part of its design, because every new mechanism you can define their own table setup, which means that the mechanism can simply use these numbers as long there is some table setup that protects them from other CBOR packed use. And this table setup, of course, can be implicit, like we are planning for DNS CBOR to have an implicit mechanism that says, this is the table setup mechanism that is being used in this particular media type. So you wouldn't even see this table setup.
Yes, I'm saying mostly the same. Observe that actual usage for these values always happens inside some namespace tag. For example, the tag 113 or 1113, or maybe some other. But for example, in my CBOR CBAP, this will be completely another tag, tag 10, which has absolutely another table setup mechanism, which also can use these simple values. So if you put definition that usage of these values must always occur just inside some setup tag, this could be done. But currently you are saying that this always must happen in CBOR pact, and I'm proposing that a way that they could be used not only by CBOR packs.
Maybe you should try to answer Migulai's question. Functions, yes. So can you explain how you would use those?
Well, this may require another presentation, much bigger. Okay, I have some other slides, which I'll also have to tell them. But here's example usage. For example, here in CBOR CBAP, you can see usage of simple zero, which this is a function name, which puts some items into table, might call it dictionary, into table 0. Symbols 0 to 6 are intended to fill tables 0 to 6, and others may be used for another functions. For example, the name compression here, NC, could be assigned its own simple value, for example, simple 14, as N is 14 letter of alphabet. Or it can be done this way. Suppose that the second tag 10 and array start is not existing. The function can be defined this way also, that it accepts a fixed number of arguments. So on these slides, for today, I have only these examples. A complete explanation of CBOR CBAP may require the presentation with dozens of slides for entire interim.
So what you're saying here is that you have a tag, which in this case is 10, that essentially defines how you are using simple 0.
Yes.
That's exactly what a table setup tag is.
Yes, but it is not a CBOR packed table setup tag. It's
It is.
completely.
It is not among the set that is predefined by the CBOR pact document, but the CBOR pact document has an extension point where you can define additional tags that do their own table setup.
Mm,
So that's a really important part of the design. So we are not stuck with the specific table setup that we are
yes,
in
I
essentially
understand.
as everything
Yes,
included.
I understand, but this way you offer me to have CBOR to be based on a CBOR pact, so that it defines another tag. But the usage inside this tag 10 is very different.
Yeah, which is totally okay for a table setup tag.
What, please again?
A table setup tag doesn't have to look like the tags that are already being defined in the CBOR pack document for table setup. That's an extension point. So people can come in and do really weird things. If they fit their application, then they can put this into a table setup tag and use the existing reference tags, which are essentially just parts of the overall CBOR code space that we are setting aside to do this referencing. But what the referencing exactly does is something that the table setup tag defines.
Yes, but this should be said in standard explicitly. So I propose to split in two parts, at least for simple values, in a way that one short small RFC about 16 simple values defines them to be defined more concrete in another specifications. For example, CBOR pact. In such a way, I will have no objections to using all 16 simple values. This way, it will be better for all. For example, if any other author will invent his completely own new scheme and also wants to use these simple values, then he just needs to define the usage in his own tag.
Yeah, it probably makes sense to actually do the phrasing for one example for how such a table setup tag could look like. So maybe that's one activity we could do before we finish this. Yeah, I think we have that covered. And it certainly would be a good idea to ensure with an example that we actually do. I'm not sure we need to include the example in the CBOR pack document because that provides an extension point where these things actually can be plugged in.
Well, you can, but how the users of standard are supposed to implement this if they don't know the future?
Well, that's the whole problem with designing extension points. You don't know the future, but you can design them in such a way that they actually bring value because, well, yeah, you do have some taste for what will be possible, what people will want to do. And of course, that taste can be wrong, and that's something that hits all kinds of technical designs you run into. So we cannot ensure that this solves all remaining problems we will ever run into, but we can design it in such a way that we have a reasonable certainty for that. And I'll shut up now.
No, I think it would, it would not be a bad thing to have an example in the document of how you might extend it. Just in case anyone implementing it doesn't find it clear enough, an example might help.
Well, for now I said about simple values. So, do everybody agree that we can proceed next with such? I think that. Well, it's not an extension point because extension point means extension of CBOR Pact. But what I am saying about is a completely different mechanism. For example, on slides from previous interim, I had an example where CBOR can be combined with CBOR Pact, with CBOR outside and CBOR Pact inside, and they will have different meanings for simple values, and they will not clash.
So, as this discussion's been going on, the reason that I've let this go in parallel with the other work that we're in the middle of doing is that I wanted to be sure that we don't need to change CBOR Pact to accommodate this later. I'm pretty sure we don't at this point. So I would like to take this proposal and put it aside, defer it until we finish the 3 documents that we've been spinning on for a while. Does that sound like a reasonable approach right now? That we will get back to this after these 3 documents that we're in the middle of are finished.
But how do you want to complete these documents without knowing exact values for A, B, and C?
Well, that's a decision that needs to be made, but I don't think that's related to working on CBOR.
I'm not sure I am understanding this. Okay, let me phrase this another way. At least for variable A, do anyone agree that we can use all 16 if they could be shared for another mechanisms? Okay, Carsten. Of course, Carsten would agree.
And any discussion? Does anyone disagree? Okay, so there we are.
So there are no objections from having A to be 16 if we share this range somehow, yes? So we can say we made progress at least on this variable.
Okay, so back to this, what I would like to do is defer work on CBOR until we are done with these 3 documents. So let's go back to the CBOR PAC document. Karsten,
Yeah,
sorry?
pronunciation. Have you mean CBOR? Not CBOR.
CBOR, we are going to defer work on CBOR until later.
Yes, of course. What I'm saying, I just want some separate document, separate from CBOR Pact,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
just registers 16 simple values and maybe text, I don't know, and then go on.
Yes,
first-
and I'm
and
saying
yeah.
we will work on that separate document after these three documents that we've been working on for a while are done. Okay?
I propose it in a way that the first user of this short document will be a CBOR Pact document. At least for simples.
So what change do you want to make to the CBOR Pact document?
Fix on A equal to 16 and refer to the short registration document.
Ah, okay. Karsten, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's really a completely different question how many documents we need and where we split up things and so on. So I don't care about that part. But I think that it might help to actually write a little bit more about how table setup actually makes these reference mechanisms, both the simple values and the tags, available for other mechanisms. And that would be an editorial change because that's already part of the technology that we could definitely add to this document.
Well, for simples, I don't see how it requires changing. CBOR Pact already defines the using of A simple values. So just issue short registration RFC, refer to it, and use all 16 simples. No need to change here. What we probably need to discuss more is tag ranges. If possible, this could be registered in this way too, but I'm not sure for now. This is a fresh idea.
I'm trying to figure out what the next step is at this point. Karsten, do you want to split this, the small registration document out and go in that direction? Does that sound reasonable?
we would have to ask the designated expert whether they think this actually is an appropriate use. But I don't understand what the difference between one document and two documents is here.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So-
trying to figure out as well. And I'm not understanding Vadim's proposal in that regard.
Well, my proposal is for a small document to be that different, completely unrelated standards can use these values for their purposes. The small registration document just says this I use it for packing and templating.
And I guess what we're not getting is why this can't just be in the CBOR pack document.
I don't understand how this can be in CBOR pack document because it assigns a very specific meaning to these simple values. These are references here, and in another specification, another standard, they will have different meaning. In extensions of CBOR pact, they will have same meaning, but in another specs, they will have different meaning. Okay, maybe I need to explain this in more details in list. Maybe continue with some DNS draft notes.
So Joe, if you understand the point, maybe you can rephrase it. And
I think I do, which is like, hey, we can use these things as references in multiple different specs. So if packed declares that it registers them as only useful for packed, then they can't be reused by another spec.
Yeah, so let's not do that.
That's what Vadim is asking for, I think.
Yeah, and that's pretty much
Fine,
what the
but-
editorial fix that I was talking about was about. So just make sure that the document cannot be misunderstood in this way.
Right. So then the
Right.
question
Just
is,
because-
does that need to be a separate doc so that it's not conflated with packed? Just saying, hey, we reserve these ranges for doing things that are like packed or other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because the pack document reserves certain values doesn't mean that those values can't be used in other ways. As long as it's the registration, the information should be in the registration for what these are for.
Yeah,
Well,
so I think we are essentially splitting between section 2 and section 3 of the document, if I remember the section numbers correct. And we could do that.
Let's from experiences with implementers, they may don't quite understand how different simple values work. But this is let me show about DNS because Martin has to go. Well, I had some problems with examples in last DNS draft. For example, the tag combinations of current CBOR pact tag and DNS packend tag is not quite clear. I put that on the slides. This definitely needs more explanation or maybe even fixing in next versions of DNS draft. And I've did some compression of this example beyond the way defined in current DNS CBOR draft by actually using CBOR pact or CBOR. So you have you see that example in original size. Applying CBOR pact for common bytes in IPv6 address. Going that way, which was defined, and assuming 32 text would be registered at you see the tag on the screen on the slide. And two ways using CBOR. Some is simple. First is simpler to implement, but it is bigger in size, and others. The second is gives better packing results, while just a few bytes, but it is more complex.
Okay, I think we need to go back to the list and just wrap this up on the list. We're almost done with today's call, and I want to reserve a few minutes for one thing. Let me get
Okay.
my calendar up. So our next call is in 2 weeks, and I will not be here, and I think, Karsten, you said you will not be here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm on vacation here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so both of us are, and I'm not sure whether we get Christian back. I'm going to have to connect with Christian and see where he is. So it may be that the right thing to do is just to cancel 2 weeks from now, which would mean we discuss on the list for the next 4 weeks, and our next meeting would be June 11th. So is that good for everybody? Cancel for May 28th, and our next interim is June 11th. No objections to that? Okay. So let's take this back to the list. Does anybody have something urgent that we need to do in the next few minutes, or should we just wrap this up now? So I don't think we have much time. Lawrence.
I'd like to give it a shot for what I had to say,
Go for it.
rather than wait a month.
Yes, go for it.
So, looking at the CDE document for a long time, and trying to get somewhere with issues in GitHub and emails and discussions and stuff like that.
Very, very quiet.
You can't. Can you hear me?
I think it's better now.
Okay. So I've been working on comments and things with CDE via GitHub and email, and it's not really working that well for me. I don't feel like. I have some bigger ideas and in the way that the document is structured and such, and so to express that, I basically have written a replacement document for the CDE draft, and it's I'll post the post the link to it. It really takes a different view of the structure. I'm sure many things, many details will be wrong, but I'd actually would be nice if people looked at the structure and the different orientation that it takes. It's makes many fewer changes. It introduces fewer comments, fewer ideas, and it's much shorter. I did this just to express what I've been thinking, where I'd like this document to go. And so I really don't think I could have done this via individual comments in GitHub and individual email discussion. You need to see the whole structure from the top to the bottom. So that's why I published the document this way. I don't know how this plays out in the working group here. I mean, it's potentially, adopted by the working group. I mean, that's kind of would be a very large shift. But I wanted to share that and all that. So I think a big part of the job here is clarity and ease of use for the community. So that is a lot of what I have focused on in the document. I think this is a third generation document in that, there was 7049, then there was 8949, and now there's this. So the clarity and ease of use should be much better as we go. I also believe that there should be really strong consensus on this. It shouldn't be just like nobody objects. It should be we're getting some chunk of people, some number of people that are actually saying we really like what is happening here. I mean, so far most of the discussion around CDE is just basically been between me and Karsten. I believe preferred serialization in particular is a pretty important thing in the CBOR ecosystem. In some ways, it's more universally used than EDN or even PACT. So to me, this is an important thing that we should be doing a thorough job of, and that we should have a lot of consensus on. And so I would really like to see a lot more participation from the rest of the working group on this topic, so that we get
So
all of them.
what you're asking here is that that people go read your document and let's see if we like that approach to that alternative approach.
Yeah, basically, yes. But yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that was
Right? That's a reasonable thing to request. Let's go with that.
maybe Barry, maybe more than that. You've interrupted me. I had
Sorry,
a few more.
because we're running out of time, and I really need
I know.
to
I'm
end
looking at the clock, and I thought I had 2 more minutes.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
So the point is not just look at the document, but I would really like to see more consensus on what we're doing with the topic of serialization. I mean, more participation, more people, reading and commenting, and to see a positive consensus around what we do, where we like a quarter of us or a third of us or more than one or two people are saying, yes, we like this, or we should do this, or something like that. So, and I think that consensus is really important here for this topic, which I think is actually a pretty important topic for the CBOR ecosystem. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in the next 4 weeks, we have the work on PACT that we talked about, and take a look at Lawrence's CBOR serialization document, see how that alternative works for people, and let's talk further about CDE and CBOR serialization on the list. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Let's take it to the list.
Thank you for sharing.